Hello, welcome to Lesson 4, Examples of Critical Thinking in Music Classes. The goal of this lesson is to provide you with strategies that can be implemented in your music classroom to enhance critical thinking skills. We will discuss 2 examples of music making, music listening, and music creating for 2 learning levels. One level, 1st grade through 5th grade, and another level, 6th through 12th grade. These examples are easily available. This is Music Making, Strategy 1 for grades 1 through 6. Here's what you'll need. Students will need 2 different instruments. For our example, we're going to use hand drums and triangles. You'll also need to provide some musical notation, one for a steady quarter note beat that's repetitive, and one for a repeated set of eighth notes. In this example, we'll put both of those together. Now divide the learner groups into pairs. Each pair receives a hand drum and a triangle. Students who start making music start on the instrument that they choose. Now teach the hand drum to play the steady quarter note beat. Teach the triangles the eighth note rhythm. And now have them perform the groups separately. To successfully complete this performance-based task, students must problem solve to determine the exact time to play their rhythm so that it corresponds musically with the contrasting rhythm, beat versus rhythm. Additionally, students must evaluate their own performance to determine if they need to play the rhythm or the melody faster or slower to be in sync with other music makers. This task develops spatial reasoning skills and the problem-solving process. Welcome to Music Making Strategy 2. This critical thinking strategy for music classes is best used in grades 7 through 12. The strategy incorporates critical thinking processes like analysis and evaluation. Here are some materials you will need. Students will need a musical instrument, and the instructor should select some music. This strategy can occur one-on-one or at a musical ensemble classroom. Solo music is needed for the one-on-one lesson, and ensemble music is needed for small group or large classes. For example, if you have a class with many different instruments, then you need to make sure that each one of those instruments has the same melody music or harmonic part. Also, if you're doing one-on-one lessons, you want to make sure that the soloist has an accompaniment part that goes along with some of their solos. So here's some steps for a music making lesson for instrumental solos or ensembles. Remember, this incorporates critical thinking processes like analysis and evaluation. So introduce your piece of music that you've chosen through an audio or a video recording. Introduce any contextual element like the composer or the time that it was written or any setting surrounding the music. Our learner is making music on the alto saxophone. So our alto saxophone player will need solo music. And remember, if we're in an ensemble, they'll need ensemble music. So we've selected the Stars and Stripes Forever for our saxophone soloist. This is a patriotic piece written by John Philip Sousa, and we can include that information when we're introducing the piece. Step number 2 is to break down the music into 4 sections so that the student can easily access each section. Step 3 is to allow the students to begin to practice the music without supervision or very little supervision so they can create questions and draw conclusions, figure out parts of the music, circle notes they may not know, and allow themselves to discover what the piece is about. The next step would be for you as the instructor to answer those questions and to listen to conclusions that the students have drawn about the piece. Identify the questions leading to rehearsal. Step 4 it's time to put it all together. For our saxophone solo player, he's now learned the 4 sections of music, and it's time to place all those sections together. If there's an accompaniment part that goes along with the saxophone solo, now's the time to work on playing it with the accompaniment part. If this is an ensemble piece, then now's the time to put sections of the ensemble together. Students will listen analyze as after they perform. They'll even evaluate their own music using the problems. Welcome to Strategy 3, Music Listening. For this music listening strategy for grades 1 through 6, the strategy includes making a musical concept map. The strategy involves analysis, creation, and evaluation thinking skills. For this activity, you'll need an audio device to play music for all the students to hear clearly. Test your music ahead of time to make sure. Step 1 in music listening concept map making is to select an appropriate piece of music. We've chosen Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies from the Nutcracker Suite. Once you've chosen your music, you'll need to select visual images to represent the sounds that are found in the song. In the Nutcracker Suite Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, we've selected drummers, ballet dancers, trumpets, and flutes to represent each of the individual sounds. Step 2 is to have the students listen to the music without any response. Some instructors like to hold off on handing out the manipulatives until after Step 2. Once you've listened to the music once without any response, you're ready for Step 3. Play the music for the students again. This time, while the students listen to the music, they'll place the manipulatives in order that they occur in the music. You may have to play the music in sections. You may, in the middle of Step 3, need to play the music again or a certain section again of the music to help the students arrange their manipulatives. For Step 4, have the students finalize their music concept maps in the format directed by their instructor. For example, you could have students paste it on paper or on a hard cardboard background for easier presentation. Finally, the last step is for students to share their music with each other and practice following the music with each other's concept maps. Remember, the idea is to enhance critical thinking skills like analysis, creation of the concept map, and evaluation of not only their own work, but the work of their peers. This music listening instructional strategy is for grades 7 through 12. We will break the implementation process down into steps for easier instruction. This is called a constructed response strategy. The materials you will need is an audio device to play music for all students to hear clearly. Be sure to test your music ahead of time. You'll also need a method of writing a constructed response or typing on a computer application. Step 1 of the constructed response strategy is to select an appropriate piece of music for your class or for your event. For this example, we've chosen the Star-Spangled Banner by Francis Scott Key. Play this music in its entirety for the students. The first time through, the students should just listen and not to respond to music in written format. As an instructor, you could choose any music that is appropriate for your musical objective. As an instructor, you could choose this example, the Star-Spangled Banner, near Veterans Day or Memorial Day to support critical thinking about emotions surrounding patriotism. Choose instrumental or vocal music based on where you want your learners to focus their critical listening skills. Step 2 in the constructed response strategy is to play the national anthem again, or whatever musical selection you've chosen, and ask the students to write a list of words that communicate ideas, thoughts, and emotions they experience as the music plays. Students should list their words and not attempt to complete sentences at this step. Step 3, have the students compare and revise their list of words as the music plays one last time. And in the final step, have the students write a 5-sentence full descriptive paragraph about the Star-Spangled Banner. The students should use the words from their revised list to help guide their instruction. Once the students have completed their paragraphs, they can share their work and revise one last time. Strategy 5 is a music creating strategy. It's a musical instructional strategy for grades 1 through 5 and requires students to create, analyze, and evaluate a musical product. The materials that you will need are instruments for making music and creating music. Younger students will create music with instruments and basic music length with longer short notation. Some students will include musical notation. At the beginning of this process, you will use selected melodic and rhythmic instruments. Have students choose a form for their musical composition. For this grade level, we'll use ABA form and simplest for the younger kids. At step 2, have your students create a melody using their melodic instrument and/or rhythmic instrument using their own notation or musical notation. Next, have the students practice their compositions. And now they're ready to perform and record their compositions. Once they've had a chance to listen to those recorded compositions, have them revise those based on their peer evaluation and the evaluations of their instructors. Finally, let the learners perform their final compositions for each other in a concert format with listening maps for the other students. Our next strategy for music creating is a critical thinking strategy for grades 6 through 12. This strategy requires students to create, analyze, and evaluate their musical compositions using a computer-based application. The students will need, for this exercise or this strategy, a musical notation platform. Examples of these platforms include Sibelius, Finale, and GarageBand. Once you have familiarized yourself with the program, make sure your students are familiar with it. For our example, we're going to use GarageBand. So as an instructor, I want to make sure that the students know how to open the program, select different instruments, make sure that those instruments have the right sounds that they need, and how to input meter, key signature, and tempo. The next step in the process of music creating requires that you share your musical compositions with your peers. Now's the time to get peer feedback, instructor feedback, and begin to make revisions on your project. The composition may take 2 or 3 revisions. The first or second ideas may not work and sometimes require just a little more effort to make things exactly sound the way you want. Now let's take you through some features of GarageBand. Here's where you have the key signatures, time signatures, tempos. Here's where you add voices. You can see I've added drums and a bebop organ. And now you can hear the drums play. Now I'm going to take the bebop organ. You can see I can choose other organs or other instruments there. And now I'm going to hear what the bebop organ sounds like. I'm going to take it back to the beginning. Now I'm going to make sure I'm on bebop organ. Now I'm clicking on play. You can hear the bebop organ sounds on top of the percussion sounds. Just testing to make sure that's the right organ sound that I want. I'm going to take it back and now I can record. Decided what sounds I want. I hear the metronome click. And now I can hear and see that I'm recording. Just an example of how you can create musical sounds fairly quickly using GarageBand and record them fairly quickly as well.